by crime, which is most of our major American cities right now. Hang in there, ladies and gentlemen, because Biden has a plan, because he's got the solution. It's not the fact that the Democrats are running those cities, it's guns. Blame guns. Guns are the problem. They're the reason why people are stabbing people with an ice pick on a subway in New York. You know, it's a gun. Forget the ice pick. Forget the person that actually did it. It's the gun. If we can just arrest all the guns with no bail for them, I think we'll solve the problem. And I'll get into that in a minute. And then, of course, I've been talking about these cultural wars here. I tell you what, morale at the Air Force Base out in Nevada, outside of Las Vegas, must be going through the roof, because they've had a drag show there on the Air Force Base to boost morale. It's not your daddy's Army or military or Air Force anymore. Maybe I'm out of step, but it just seems a bit peculiar to have a drag queen show review on a military base to boost morale. But we'll get into the details of that. And then a mayor out in Colorado has officially suspended the Pledge of Allegiance from being said during their meetings because it's controversial and it divides people. The Pledge of Allegiance is the great divider, not the unifier, and we'll expand upon that. But before we go any further, always got to talk about our sponsors, and the number one sponsor on that list is BDU, Big Daddy Unlimited. They are all things Second Amendment. So they're to blame, right? They're the fault. No, they're to blame for the best pricing on guns, ammunition delivered directly to your door. If you want somebody to blame for cheaper pricing on guns and ammunition, blame BDU. Check out our sponsor link above the video, no matter when or where you're watching it. Click on that, follow directions. You will get an amazing discounts. We have a show now that precedes our show called Denny's Deals. Denny's Deals comes on 10 o'clock Eastern Time across John Martin Talks, Facebook, Excluded, spell it with an X, Excluded, and many other venues as well. Check them out, because Denny's Deals is a live show, and what Denny does is he demonstrates the factory direct pricing that you'll get if you join up with BDU, which will help the show and help you. What he does is on Denny's Deals is he shows the suggested manufacturer suggested retail price of a particular item. Then he talks about the internet price, the average internet price, and then the BDU price. He shows it to you, and you will be amazed. And he goes through a different item every day, and he's got a lot to go through, because BDU can provide you with over 100,000 items related to the Second Amendment, from protective wear, from strategic wear, from tactical gear to even survival gear. All of that at BDU. Check it out, and remember, Denny's Deals at 10 o'clock in the morning. Recoil TV is all about the Second Amendment as well. They produce videos that demonstrate the types of products that you would find on Big Daddy Unlimited. Check them out as well. We have a channel within their YouTube channel. Of course, we have our own YouTube channel. Spell it all the way out, John Martin Talks. But Recoil TV, we are partnered with them, and we have a channel in their channel, which means our show is archived there on a daily basis, and we are grateful for that partnership. All right, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this show here. This is from the Washington Examiner. Psaki, the words Jen Psaki, the press secretary's Biden strategy for combating national crime spike will focus on gun violence and gun safety. I feel better already, don't you? It's not going to focus on the people that are committing the crimes. It's going to focus on guns, and we know that, guns that sit there just jump up and rob liquor stores and shoot children in their strollers in the streets of Chicago. It's all the guns. It's not them. And I love this picture. And yes, Mr. Algorithm, this is a Photoshop picture, but I think it actually says a lot there, because the Biden-Harris administration is just sitting by while America burns. It's unbelievable, man, unbelievable. But President Joe Biden will use his speech on rising crime rates. Apparently he's going to make one tomorrow, I believe. President Joe Biden will use his speech on rising crime rates across the country as an opportunity to address gun violence and gun safety in the country. So when they had those people shoot those Puerto Ricans that were celebrating a Puerto Rican festival in Chicago the other day, where they literally, a guy actually got in an accident and he paid for it with his life. Some dudes jumped out of the car and just shot him in the head point blank, shot his girlfriend. His last report I had is she's hanging on by a thread to life. We certainly send out our prayers to them. And then did you see in New York City where these two thugs, where one was chasing another, and the dude grabbed a hold of these little kids to kind of use them as a shield, and the dude was trying to shoot around him to actually, if you hadn't seen that video, we probably should have played it, but check it out. I mean, it's the guns. It's not the idiots that are using the guns. It's the guns themselves that are the problem. And so Joe Biden is going to solve that problem. Because one thing we know for sure now, this is something you can take to the bank. It is not the fault of bad governance by these Democratic mayors. You look at any city in America that you basically want to run away from, it's led by Democratic mayors, right? And Democratic city councils. So, but it's not their fault in any way, shape, or form. So the mayhem that is happening in our cities is not the fault of the Democrats. It's guns. I mean, that Lightfoot gal in Chicago literally said, when they had like 50-some people shot on a weekend, she said, oh, it's the fault of people going into Indiana. They're buying guns in Indiana, and that's the problem, man. It is absolutely crazy. I don't know if if we got that meme up there about the city mayhem, football season is coming up, and yeah, there it is right there. Remember that guy? The mayhem. It's not the fault of the Democrats. It's guns. It's gun. The reason why Baltimore is like a total S-hole is because of guns. It's just insane, man. The reason why gun sales are going up, by the way, and you might want to check out BDU for factory direct pricing, is because of the violence in these cities. It's not the cause of it. If anything is cause effect, it's people are buying guns in record numbers because of the violence in these Democratic-led cities. I want to play you a video right now. You've seen it, but it just shows you what we're up against, how totally ridiculous the left is. Check this out.
I want to be clear in how I characterize this. This is mostly a protest. It is not generally speaking unruly, but fires have been started, and there's a crowd that is.
Fires have been started. I mean, somebody's American dream in the background is just like in flames, man. This has been mostly peaceful. It's not unruly. I love how he says it's not unruly. They're burning the damn place down. Excuse my friend. They're burning it down, but it's not unruly. So I guess they're calmly burning the city down. I mean, it is just absolutely insane the way these left believe. I mean, you have to be able to believe. Here's something I hadn't said in a while, but if I say it, it bears repeating. One of the things you have to do in order to be a progressive is to be able to believe things that are 100%, 180 degrees opposite each other, but they're both true at the same time. So in other words, that video shows it perfectly. You can sit there and believe that it's not unruly and it's a mostly peaceful protest while the city is burning down around you at the same time. You have to be able to, I mean, that's 180 degrees opposite, right? You have to believe that. You have to believe, for instance, that you're protecting democracy when you're trying to destroy it at the same time. I mean, that's one of my axioms. In order to be a successful progressive, you have to have the unique ability to believe two things at the same time that are 180 degrees opposite. That's what you have to do. But Jen Psaki, I hope I say that name right, Jen Psaki, the press secretary, called the spike a concern for many Americans, Republicans, and Democrats, and rejected the notion that Biden is concerned that there could be an increase in crime this summer with the pandemic mostly over. So yeah, people are getting paid to do nothing and sit around. There's plenty of jobs. They get bored and they say, oh, well, I'll go out and mug somebody, I guess. I mean, it's just crazy, man. But it says mostly as crime rates have been rising over the past 5 years. So Jen Psaki is blaming it what? If it's over the past 5 years, it's all Donald Trump's fault. Donald Trump is to blame for everybody getting shot in Chicago. Donald Trump is to blame for basically everything, right? It's Donald Trump's fault. So if you're wondering why crime is going through the roof in New York, it's not because you have the most idiotic, worst mayor in the history of the world in Bill de Blasio. It's Donald Trump. And on a side note, did you see that the Trump organization is actually suing the city of New York now? This is kind of a developing story, so we didn't want to cover it too deep. But the Trump organization is suing the city of New York because Bill de Blasio canceled a bunch of contracts, not because Trump was doing a bad job, because the Trump organization is actually doing a beautiful job if you look at the numbers, but because he said Donald Trump led the insurrection day in D.C., and therefore we had to cancel his contracts for running a sports venue. You know, it's just crazy, right? But much of the country says it's shut down. Here's the thing. Let me read this part again. As crime rates have been rising over the past 5 years, blame Donald Trump, not just the past 18 months. This is what Jen Psaki said, when much of the country is shut down or under restrictions. So blame anyone but me. Don't blame me. Blame the guy behind the tree. It's not the Democrats' fault. It's blame America first. It's blame guns. It's blame Donald Trump. They probably want to blame JMT, you know, right here at John Martin Talk. It's anybody's fault but Lori Lightfoot in Chicago. It's anybody's fault but Bill de Blasio in New York. Did you see that? And they're having an election today, I think the Democratic primary in New York, and this ex-cop looks like he's leading the way. It's like between him and Chang or whatever. We'll cover it and see how that goes. But wouldn't that be interesting if the people in New York actually vote in an ex-police officer as the next mayor, because the Democrat is most likely to win, but there's a good Republican candidate out there too, so we'll see. But blame anyone. And I'm going to play you this video. We touched on this story a little bit yesterday. There's no audio in it because it's a surveillance video. Now this video is roughly about a year old. I believe it's in Brooklyn, but it's a pharmacy, a mom and pop owned pharmacy that had been in the family for like 20 years. They've been building it slowly but surely, but they basically lost everything on one night. Like I say, there's no audio, but check out what happens to their pharmacy, and we'll talk about the significance of it in just a moment. Check it out. I think you get the picture. They literally stripped the shelves of that place. Now, CVS and Walgreens and places like that, and I'm not advocating, putting them that they shouldn't worry about that kind of stuff. I mean, we did a story about Walgreens out in San Francisco has pretty much shuttered their doors or planning on closing all of their stores out there because they can't stay in business because there's laws out in California now that say you can't. It's not a felony to steal anything under $950, and it's not even a felony to sell stolen merchandise as long as it's under $950. So people are literally just walking into Walgreens and cleaning their shelves out. So I understand. So I'm not trying to say you shouldn't feel sorry for Walgreens. You should, but it's different when you're a mom and pop. Your whole life's work is in that store right there, and their American dream was shattered right there. And the significance of this is that in New York City now the owners of that pharmacy came out and said basically there was no investigation done, that they have provided all kind of footage, even identified some of the people in that video because they knew them from the neighborhood, and they said there was no arrests really made, no real investigation. And on top of that, New York has essentially declared, New York City, that all the people that rioted and looted there over the last year are just free to go. They're not even going to charge them with anything. So it's not a crime now in New York City to loot property. How does that make it where you can actually have a city? No wonder people are buying guns. If the police are told to basically stand down and not and the DAs don't prosecute people, what are you left to do? Your Second Amendment gives you the right to bear arms, and I would say not only is it your personal responsibility to protect, defend your life, liberty, and your property, your family, but it is a basic human right. Now, I know not every country in the world has that, and that's why one of the reasons why people are coming here. But I would maintain it's not just a Second Amendment right. It is essentially a human right to protect yourself, your family, and your property. And when you can't do that, what are you left with? I mean, what choice do you have? It is just a sad day, and no speech by Joe Biden is going to change that. I mean, think about it. If you don't, those people weren't using guns to rob that place. They just walked in there and took what they wanted. I mean, it's just insane. And you know what would have happened? What do you think would have happened had that pharmacist and his family stood up for themselves and maybe shot somebody there? Well, they probably wouldn't have got looted any further, but they'd probably be sitting in prison. They would prosecute them, but the people stealing from them, not so much. We're living in bizarro world. I told you this before the election, that if Joe Biden actually won, we would be in progresso world, and you're not going to like it. I don't care if you hate Donald Trump and you're pro-Democrat. You're not going to like the world that Joe Biden and his kind are creating. I can tell you that right now. The White House top spokesperson, talking about Jen Psaki, didn't answer a follow-up question, which they never really do, about if Biden's strategy will be approaching this differently than he would in the 90s when he passed the Biden crime bill that basically told Black America, I don't care what causes your children to be in the street. We just got to get these hoodlums off. What do you call them? Predators. Black children. I don't care what causes it. We got to get them off the street. I think he's probably going to, he was Jim Crow before. I mean, Joe Biden he could be named Uncle Jim Crow. But they said he would in the 90s. This is what Jen Psaki said. The question came out, will Biden be approaching this differently than he would in the 90s? But added that it is an area where the president feels a great deal of crime we are seeing. Yeah, no doubt about it. You can expect that he will speak to that and his commitment to addressing gun violence and gun safety in the country. That's what we need. That's going to solve the problem of gun violence in Chicago, is a gun safety course. Of course, they attacked the NRA that teaches gun safety. Who's going to teach the gun safety course? The FBI? Are they going to infiltrate the people like they've done for the January 6th, I started to call it resurrection, but insurrection or whatever. But who's going to teach the gun safety? By the way, you can get that through Big Daddy Unlimited as well. Big Daddy Unlimited Guns. If you're in the area, they have gun safety here. But who's going to teach? So it's gun safety. If you just know how, it's not safe. Let me just help you with this. It is not safe to take a gun, pull the pistol, and aim it at somebody's head while they're laying on the sidewalk in Chicago. That is not a very safe thing to do. It is not safe to chase another guy down the street with a gun, have him grab two children, try to use them as a human shield, and for you to have the pistol and trying to get around the children to shoot him. That's not safe. So I'm just trying to help, man. But like I said, they're stabbing people in New York, so you can have all the gun safety you want. It won't stop an ice pick, man. And the 90s crime bill, like I said, it's crazy. And how about this? Did you see this over the weekend? The Portland police, their riot squad, quit en masse in protest over the weekend. Now, I guess that's guns' fault, right? I guess it's anybody's fault but the poor governance in the city of Portland. It couldn't possibly be something like this that caused them to quit.
Protesters broke into police union headquarters and started a fire. Police tried to clear the area, shutting down several streets around the union headquarters. Demonstrators have taken to the streets of Portland for more than 2 months now, many of them protesting racial injustice and police brutality after the killing of George Floyd. Others doing this. Federal agents who had been criticized for deploying in Portland recently turned the streets back over to local police.
The police officers are quitting. It's not because of, NRA members or customers of Big Daddy Unlimited. It's because they're not getting any support. I mean, they literally are charging a police officer out there with, attacking a Antifa person. They're coming on the streets, these Antifa. You saw it in the video. They got like barrels cut for shields. I mean, they're all dressed in black because they don't want their grandma to know what they're doing. And they're wearing these helmets, riot gear. They're throwing Molotov cocktails out. They're actually shooting people. That video we just showed you is about a year old, and they haven't stopped. They've been rioting in Portland pretty much every night for over a year, and the police officers have had to deal with that. And now they're charged, so they're going to let all the Antifa people go. But the police officers are going to be charged. Ladies and gentlemen, we're not going to have a police officers in this country. If there is a war on police, yeah, I said it. But Biden, man, I tell you what, I don't know if Biden is good for much in the economy, but I can tell you this. He's dadgum good for gun sales. So maybe maybe he's got stock invested in gun sales because he is absolutely shooting it through the roof. So maybe we need to get him. Maybe I'm being too harsh on Joe because maybe he's the lead gun salesman in the world. Is anybody causing people to buy more guns than Joe Biden? I'm just saying. All right, let me check my time. We're doing all right. I got another story here for you. And this one here, it just warms me. What do they say? The cockles of my heart, whatever that actually means. This is a story about how good our Air Force has it, how good our men and women in uniform have it. Listen to this. This is a Breitbart story, exclusive. Nellis Air Force Base hosts first ever drag queen show, essential to morale and readiness. Now this is essentially like a Top Gun school out there. This is where the best and the brightest of our Air Force go to become the most elite pilots. And, I don't know, maybe it's a whole new thing. Can you get those? What are those things they wear? A lot of drag queens wear. I mean, can you stream them out the back of the plane? I don't know. But the drag queens, we got an actual picture of some of the performers, I believe, that were at this particular show on the actual air base. If we put that up there, and we may have already done it and I missed it. The Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada, there you go. Now, I tell you what. They'll lift your morale. If those two right there can't get your morale boosted, then maybe you need to take a blue pill or something. The Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada recently hosted its first ever drag queen show at one of its own base dining and entertainment clubs, according to a base spokesperson. Now, I want to play. Maybe I got this all wrong. Maybe I'm just an old square dude, mighty whitey or whatever. Maybe my white privilege card like I have here has got me out of step. Maybe. I'll admit, maybe I am, because it's not the type of Navy that my dad was in, I can tell you that, or the Air Force in this case. But I think it's fair in this case to lump them all together because there's some crazy stuff coming in from the Pentagon. But this was a local thing. But maybe just, Billy Bob tells me that he's got a video to play. If you don't know my psychic sidekick, this is Billy Bob Bass. He has a Twitter handle. It's at Billy Bob Bass 1, and mine is at John Martin Talks. And as I said before, we are determined to stay in the public square no matter what. So check him. But Billy Bob tells me we got a video that shows why the morale would be boosted by a drag show, and something I'm not seeing. So let's play it.
Hello there. I'm Little Miss Hot Mess from Drag Queen Story Hour, and I'm so excited to share a book with you today, Worm Loves Worm, by J.J. Austrian and Mike Curato, published by Balzer and Bray, an imprint of HarperCollins Children's. Shall we get started? Worm loves worm.
Hey, you learn something every day. Worm loves. There's a joke in there somewhere, right? This lady right here, not knocking her at all, or him or her, or I don't know what the right pronoun is. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is a video of what is it called? Drag Queen Story Hour. This is actually in the public library in New York. They're having, when I talk about the video, I'm talking about the actual show up in the public library system, and it's happening all over the country. They're actually bringing little kids in and having storybooks read to them by drag queens. So maybe Billy Bob is right. Maybe today's military, if you're raised up on Drag Queen Story Hour, Maybe it will boost your morale to feel like, God bless America and baseball and apple pie. Instead it's God bless America. Well, I guess you can't say that, right? It's drag queen America. And let me just tell you, I'm not opposed to drag queens. I think there can be highly entertaining. I will tell you right now, I have seen Drag Queen Review. My wife loves RuPaul. She watches that drag race show all the time, and it is pretty humorous. I'm not anti-drag queen in any way, shape, or form. I just don't know if it's something we need on our military bases. I know it's not something we need for story hour for children. I mean, when it comes to all of this kind of stuff, I've told you before, but if I say it, it bears repeating. And I know we got new viewers every day. I appreciate you. But I got a simple policy when it comes to this. This old boy, open mind, closed behind. I don't care what you do in the privacy of your own home. I don't think it should be shown to kids. And maybe I'm wrong about the airbase deal out there. You can chime in on Facebook and tell me, am I right? Am I wrong? I'm on YouTube. We appreciate that. But Nellis Air Force Base and the 99th Air Base Wing hosted its first ever, that's one thing, everything is a first now, first ever drag show Thursday, June 17th at the Nellis Club. So they got a club there, and there's a lot of clubs around Vegas. They probably could see this on their own, right? But the event was sponsored by a private organization, provided an opportunity for attendees to learn more about the history and significance of drag queen performance art within the LGBT alphabet plus community. Now, is that something and I'm not knocking the history of LGBT. And believe me, there have been people, drag queens, and people have been, what is it said? We're queer, we're here, get used to it from the beginning of time. I mean, it's not like this is not something that hasn't happened forever. So it is a part of the human equation. I get it. But does it really, what does it have to do with death from above? Isn't that what the Air Force is supposed to be? I mean, really, and some people may not like it when I say this, but the military's main job is to kill folks, to protect and defend the United States of America and our allies and our interests. And it's not done through, I know the military does all kind of things, and I'm not knocking it. And I'm not saying that everybody in the military just needs to be a killer. But at the end of the day, the ultimate mission of the military is to blow some stuff up, right? I mean, it just is. It just is what it is, as they say. But I guess, maybe I'm out of step. Maybe I am. But death from above, well, Billy Bob tells me, you got to remember Obama said that we got to lead from behind. So what do you mean by that? Oh, I get it, man. I get this joke in there somewhere. Lead from behind. So I guess all this is part of the new strategy because it's the Obama third term we're going through. So maybe leading from behind. Because, there's a lot of people have said this. My wife says this all the time, that Barack Obama wasn't the first black president. They used to say that Bill Clinton was the first black president. Obama, if you look at what he did, he was the first openly gay president, maybe. I'm not saying he is, but they sure went all out there. I'm just saying. Maybe tell me where I'm wrong. Back to this article, ensuring our ranks reflect and are inclusive of the American people is essential to the morale, cohesion, and readiness of the military. One thing I know, it seems like old white dudes are persona non grata. I'm just saying. Nellis Air Force Base is committed to providing and championing an environment that is characterized by equal opportunity, diversity, and inclusion. So now, the Air Force's mission, and this is basically the Pentagon's mission, is equal opportunity, diversity, and inclusion. So that's the main goals of the military now. Not killing folks, not protect and defend the Constitution, but do we look rainbow enough? Are we colorblind enough? I can tell you right now, if we're going to be invaded, I don't really care what color or what sexuality you are. I don't care. I mean, it used to be, as I used to say, back in the day, like in Vietnam, could you believe that if they came out and said that being gay would preclude you from serving in the military? The first thing a lot of them would do is put the hand on the drill sergeant, right? I mean, my uncle God rest his soul. He was in Patton's army. He was a cook in Patton's army. He literally grew up in a log cabin on a place called Loch Loosa here. It's still pretty country down there. And he got drafted in the military, had never really been far away from Hawthorne, Florida. You got to understand, this was in the 40s. And within 2 weeks, he was on a naval, I guess what he convoy in the North Atlantic with 40-foot seas and putting on wool underwear. He said when he went in to be drafted, that and he was quite the joker. I get a little of my personality from him. He said one of the doctors looked in your mouth and the other one looked in your butt, and if they didn't see each other, you passed. So anyway, I don't know what any of this has to do with readiness, preparedness. I don't know. It's just crazy to me. Let's get back to the story. Billy Bob says, get back to it. The drag queen show came to light after Air Force veteran podcaster BK, don't know what that stands for, posted a digital flyer for the event that read, Drag You Nellis, which is the Air Force base, and class in session. Here's the flyer that went out to advertise what was happening on the Air Force base. Did you ever think you would see that really in your lifetime? That you would see it, a flyer come out. And as I say, I got no issue with drag queens, a drag show. I'm just not quite sure that it needs to be on a military base. Certainly doesn't need to be in front of our kids there. But there's a drag flyer. There's a joke in there somewhere. I'm trying to resist some of them. But this is what the flyer said. Discover the significance of drag in the LGBT plus community at the Nellis Club. So, if your morale is low, come and see the show, I guess. But as I say, can't they they're in Las Vegas, for God's sakes, man. Don't they have plenty of places to boost something or another without having it be at the local club on the airbase? I'm just asking for a friend. It was scheduled for Friday, June 17th at 5 p.m. They got to get to bed early. And sponsored by the Nellis Top 3. If you're wondering what that is, I'm going to tell you right now. The Top 3 at Nellis Air Force Base is a social and professional organization established to enhance the morale. So this is their mission. So this is what the drag show was supposed to do. You be the judge of whether it did. I didn't see the show. I'm sure it was great. The Top 3 at Nellis Air Force Base is a social and professional organization established to enhance the morale, esprit de corps of all enlisted personnel assigned to the wing, and to facilitate cooperation between members of the top 3 enlisted grades according to its private Facebook page. So the drag show is what compels people to want to serve this nation. See, I guess I'm just old school. Maybe as Billy Bob tells me, I'm just out of touch, because I actually thought that something that would compel people to serve this great nation was more like this. Every time, I got to tell you, every time I see any of that video of the World Trade Center, man, it hits me on a very personal level. Because I lived and worked in Manhattan in the mid-'80s. Yes, I saw a drag show while I was up there one time. Went with some friends of mine. But I worked and lived in Manhattan in the mid-'80s and for about 5 years. And I used to come up. I lived in Jersey City for a while. And I used to work Wall Street area primarily. And I used to come up in the World Trade Center every single morning. And I used to be friends with some of the firefighters. One of their stations was very close to a job, and we used to have coffee together. I guarantee you that I knew some of the people that ran into that building, and I was not surprised when they did. That's just a personal note. So every time I see that, it gets me. But I thought that that's the type of stuff that inspired young men and women. I know for a fact it did and still does to actually serve our military. Because, see, here's one of the things I worry about. And maybe I'm wrong about this drag queen thing. We definitely are losing the cultural wars. But I've told you this before. We have an all-volunteer military. And what I'm about to say is not a criticism at all. I think the best and the brightest often serve for us. But I'm worried about with an all-volunteer military is what if we become a country that is not worth supporting, that is not worth fighting for. And I think that's what we're in danger of doing. And I'm not laying all that on the drag queen. You know, the previous story about the violence in the cities. What if we become a country that is not worth serving and protecting, like the police officers? What if our military and our police officers take a look at it, because in some ways they're similar. They put their life on the line for our safety. What if they look around and say, it's just not worth it? I mean, that's what I'm afraid of. And I just don't see, and as I say, maybe I'm wrong, I don't see how having this drag show on the military base actually helps our cause. I just don't see it. But listen to the goals. This is the goals of Top 3, this organization that put on the show at the Air Force Base. This is their goal. The base Top 3 will provide a forum for its members to meet, share personal experiences and expertise, and assist one another. It may function as an added channel of communication within the chain of command between the commander and the enlisted Air Force Base at Nellis Air Force Base. Ladies and gentlemen, I do have an open mind closed behind, as I say, but help me with this. I don't see how this helps with that mission. I'm not necessarily saying it hinders it, but how does it help? Let me read part of this again. It will provide a forum for its members to meet, share personal experiences and expertise, and assist one another. It may function as an added channel of communication within the chain of command between the commander and the enlisted Air Force at Nellis Air Force Base. Please explain to me how that accomplishes that mission. Like I say, I'm not necessarily saying it detracts from it, but I don't see how it helps in any of that, man. I just don't. It's definitely not my daddy or your daddy's military anymore. Nellis Air Force Base is home to the service's Warfare Center. This is who goes to Nellis, where Air Force pilots undergo the most demanding advanced air combat training in the country. The crews do not come to learn how to fly, but it's because they already know, but instead how to better combat aviators in the world, the base website says. So there's some jokes in there somewhere. I don't know, but how does rain and men, how does that actually help with the mission of making them the best fighter pilots there are? I don't get it. Please help me. But I'm just telling you, ladies and gentlemen, the reason I bring this up is because my only political goal is to stop the progressive takeover of this great nation. That is my only political goal. So I judge everything based on that. And I don't see how this stops it. And matter of fact, I think it increases it. So I judge you and it's probably not fair, whether you're appointed, whether you're running for outhouse or White House or somewhere in between. I'm going to judge you on how you help me with my goal to stop the progressive takeover of this great nation, period. And that's how I see the problem there. All right, we got a few minutes left. I'm going to me, these stories are somewhat connected, because I do believe it's part of the progressive takeover of this great nation. This is a Fox News story. Colorado mayor suspends Pledge of Allegiance at meeting. Attendees recite it anyway. So this Colorado mayor said, we're not going to do the Pledge of Allegiance anymore at our meetings. I'm stopping that practice. And so when people had public comment, like an example, and when I used to be mayor of my little city, we had 5-minute public comment time. So you could come up and basically say anything within reason to the city commission, tell us about our behinds or whatever, or talk about any issue you wanted for 5 minutes. Well, this is pretty typical. Some places cut it shorter than that, 3 minutes, I think, in the local city here in Gainesville. But during their 3 to 5 minutes or whatever they had, people then came up and just recited the Pledge of Allegiance themselves, took it upon themselves to do it. And I don't blame them. I think that's very effective. But the mayor wasn't having none of it. So let's get into that. Shane Furman, the mayor of Silverton, Colorado, announced at a trustee meeting last week that the Pledge of Allegiance will be suspended due to direct and indirect threats. He didn't really explain what that means, which prompted at least one trustee, which I guess what they call their city commissioners, to challenge his ruling before attendees recited the pledge anyway. Now, so apparently, and this is confusing as well, I'm getting more and more confused on a daily basis. If you've seen our show, you'll know that it's perplexing to me sometimes, and I admit when I'm confused. The best way to see our podcast, of course, YouTube, places like that, all the social media, but we're also on America's Voice News. America's Voice News is an excellent alternative to the mainstream media. They're on Roku, Fire Stick, Apple TV. You can download free apps on your Android, your iPhone. They're also on channel 219 Dish Network and the Pluto channel. We don't have a live show on there right now. You could petition them to put us on, but if you go to their streaming service like Roku, look at it's all free. Look at their shows under the show tab. You will see our show there in like 3 16-minute segments for your viewing pleasure. But one of the things that I've been saying for a while now is it seems like things that I just took for granted made me a better person. I'm not talking about white. I'm just talking about a better person. Made me more American. Made me more grateful, because I say I say this all the time lately. I'm American by birth, thank you God, but I am Floridian by the grace of God. So I appreciate that. But it seems like, saying the Pledge of Allegiance is now a racist thing. I don't get it. I don't understand it. Standing for the national anthem is racist. I just don't understand it. Please show me. And I'm not saying that we're perfect in order to form a more perfect union. The reason why we will never, ever be perfect? Of course, they're trying to ban this as well. Talked about that yesterday, I think it was. But there's a book out there that we used to read occasionally. Some people put their hand on it and swear. And it says something about all of us falling short of the glory. And so human beings are full of character defects and flaws. So our nation was founded, I believe, divinely inspired, but it was still men that carried it out, and all their shortcomings even of today. But how is it that being a patriotic American is now considered white supremacist? I don't understand it. If you look at the history of it, like what did we just made a national holiday? I don't think it's official yet, Juneteenth. Right? And the Democrats are pushing all of this and everything else. And I'm not necessarily opposed to it. I think we got too many federal holidays, but it has nothing to do with Juneteenth. But the reality is that the reason why Juneteenth is celebrated is the freeing of the slaves, right? Well, who freed the slaves? The red, white, and blue. The Republicans, by God, I got to give credit where credit is due. The Republicans freed the slaves. The people that are screaming Jim Crow right now, like Biden, who don't care why your black children are in the street, doesn't care, called black children cockroaches. Look it up yourself. That's not me. Those people, the people that are decrying the Jim Crow laws, are the very ones that brought you the Jim Crow laws. Do you understand that? So I get it if you want to look at the battle flag of the Confederacy and say that represents slavery. There's some arguments there, but I get it. I get why black people would be offended by that. But why are they offended by the American flag? Because it was the American flag and a lot of black soldiers, by the way, that fought the Confederacy to free the slaves that brought you the reason to celebrate Juneteenth to start with. I just, on this show, I'm not politically correct, and I don't mind being truly woke. Truly woke. So I just try to speak the truth, and we see what happens. But why is it, I'll ask this and I'll move on, why is it that everything that I hold dear, the patriotic of the United States of America, the Constitution, our founding documents, our founding fathers, our flag, our national anthem, why is that now a symbol of white supremacists? Because it never has been. Just the opposite, actually. KDVR reported that Furman said he made the decision, this is the mayor out there, of why to suspend the saying of the Pledge of Allegiance. Decision based on an inappropriate comments in and out of public meetings and general divisiveness and issues created in our community. But see, the flag is supposed to be the symbol of unity. That's why I had so much of an issue, and many people like me, with Colin Kaepernick and his bunch kneeling for the national anthem. I'm not necessarily saying that some of the issues he was bringing up were wrong, by any stretch, and he has a right to free speech. But there's certain things like the flag, to me, the pledge and certainly the Star Spangled Banner, that are supposed to be the instruments of unifying us. E pluribus unum, out of the many one. There's got to be something that unifies us. And it ain't Joe Biden, regardless of what he's been saying. So, what is it now that is going to unify Americans? They say we need to unify. How are we going to unify if you trash every symbol that is supposed to be the unifying symbols of our great nation? How are you supposed to do that? Because this is, as I say, battling ignorance and apathy every day. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America, because it is an experiment, the greatest experiment in self-governance in the history of the world, and it is teetering, ladies and gentlemen. And a lot of people are ignorant and apathetic about it. And I'm just trying to challenge that. Sorry, I think my mic's going in and out a little bit. One of the trustees challenged him, talking about the mayor, called out his unilateral decision. He downplayed her concerns and told her to find out where it was written that says he cannot make such a ruling, at which point he would welcome that discussion at our next meeting. These little tin pot dictators, man. I mean, this whole thing with the pandemic has just given every little mayor and governor and everybody this idea that they going to tell us. It might not be written, it should be codified in there. It might not be written, but it is expected that when you open up a governmental thing that you pay respect to the government. It's not we the people, Joe Biden, is the government. It's we the people give you permission through the Constitution to govern us. So how dare you say that we can't say the Pledge of Allegiance if we choose to in our public square, so to speak, which is what these meetings are supposed to be. It doesn't have to be written. It has been written by the blood of patriots, sir. So, he better be glad I'm not on that commission, because, man, I would give him the what. A CBS Denver aired a video of the meeting that showed, I guess the local channel, showed attendees stand up and recite the pledge, which prompted Furman to say, that's the mayor, they were out of order. God almighty, there is hope. So people stood up and said, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. And they stood up. That's what we got to do. We got to stand against this tyranny. And you may say, well, as an individual, what can I do? But I will tell you this, it has always been up to the individual to stand up, period. It's not mass stuff that happens. Every mass movement, everything about freedom, it's one person standing up and saying the emperor has no clothes. That's what we got to do. We got to become that guy. And not everybody, as I hadn't said this in a while, but not everybody can be a fighter. I get that. But everybody can support those people in the fight, like here. Support us, support our sponsors, support our show. Check out BDU, share it with others, share our show far and wide. You might not be able to be a fighter totally yourself, but you can support me. If you watch my show any length of time, you know I am a fighter. I'm fighting with this microphone. I'm fighting every time. I'm battling ignorance and apathy on a daily basis. Well, that's going to basically do it. I want to put one more last thing up there and we'll close the show. This is Ben Franklin meme. And it's one of my favorites. And basically, ladies and gentlemen, if we don't hang together, we surely gonna hang separately. If we don't stand together, patriotic people don't stand up and say, I have had enough. And there are people doing it. But we got to keep doing it. We got to support those in the fight. I'll pray for your family. You pray for mine. I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Let's all agree to pray for this great nation, because she needs it and deserves it more than ever. But above all else, like I say each and every day, from my heart, from my family to yours, have a blessed day.